This is the creative strategy that will take you to beyond 500K a month. And we're going to talk about everything from the research process to which type of ad creatives you need and how it actually is going to shape the avatars and personas that you're going to be targeting. So in our experience, design barely moves the needle. Concept and angle do 90% of the work, and design does maybe 10%, maybe 15 or 20% if it's if there is a very good brand guideline. But in most cases, we don't obsess over designs. The reason is some of the worst designed ads or some of the ugliest ads that we've decided to try out have sometimes become the winner. And that is because 90% of the time, it's just the concept and the angle and the messaging in our ads that actually decide whether or not people are going to resonate with it or not. Sometimes the over-polished ads that follow your brand guideline 100%, they just look like ads, so people are just going to skip them. Now, just a quick example from one of our own companies here, Nordic Play Company. One of our best performers is actually this image right here. There is no design on it. It's pretty realistic. It's of course generated with AI, but it just resonates with a mom because they're having their coffee and they're actually looking at their child playing with our product, the Magic Wall. So there's no graphic design, there's no text overlay or brand callouts, and then the ad copy is doing the rest. So the reason this actually works is because it's native looking, zero polished. Of course, it's AI generated. That would just makes it a little bit easier, but would be even better if we got a real mom to take a picture like this. But when you see this ad, or when a mom sees this ad, they're not going to think that it's AI or it's an ad as a whole. They're actually going to think that this is a regular post, and that is why it works. So the awareness stage for this one is going to be problem aware, because the copy is talking about a screen time problem with their kids. So they don't know the solution yet, but they know that their kid is using way too much time on the iPad, maybe because they are giving it to them. And then market sophistication is going to be around a 3, because the magnetic chalkboard is the mechanism that breaks the screen time loop. They have seen other solutions for breaking the screen time, but we are introducing a new mechanism into their life with the magnetic chalkboard here. So this is just an example of what I mean when it comes to the concept and the angle sometimes decide, or most of the time decides way more if it's going to work or not compared to the design itself. We're going to look more into this. So why does this one work again? It's the right concept. A mom watching her child engaged with the product solves the parent's actual fear. Will my kid actually use this? It's the right angle, pure relatability, and zero sales pressure. So it enters the conversation as a moment and not as a pitch. Again, it's native to the feed. It's not native to an ad platform. That is basically the key. Now, every ad is built on 3 layers. It's built on the persona, the angle, and the offer. So each of these layers are equally important. But the first one is the persona. So who are you talking to? And you have to be very specific here, especially if you're in a very competitive market. So we're not just targeting moms, but moms whose kids won't stay off screens. The sharper the persona, the sharper everything downstream. So downstream basically just means everything below it will be sharper. The second layer is the angle. So how do you enter the conversation with this persona? What problem do you agitate? What truth do you reveal? What mechanism do you explain or use? And the frame that pulls the right persona in is basically the most important thing here. Then we have the third layer, which is the offer, what you're actually selling and how you frame the value. So it can't be the same product as your competitors, but it can be a different offer structure that can double the conversion. So this is the framework that we build all of our ads on. But let's zoom a little bit more in on the persona, as I mentioned before, because it's very easy to stop at, say, okay, we're selling to moms. We want to go way deeper than that because moms is a market, it's not a persona, it's not specific. So inside that mom market lives a dozen sub-avatars, each with different pain points, different languages, and different scroll triggers. Scroll stoppers basically. So the service level mom is where the competition piles up because everything or everybody's saying, hey, we're selling to moms. But if you really want to grow and unlock a different level of growth compared to competitors, you have to dig deeper. So this is just a few examples. So of course we have the moms in the middle here, but it's too broad as we just established. So we have a bunch of sub avatars, and we can even go deeper than these. But we have moms whose kids won't stay off screens. We have working moms with 20 minutes of after school time. We have moms of neurodivergent kids needing calm play. So these are people, or these are kids that they just can't seem to find any calmness in their day. That is a totally different sub avatar than just the moms. We have grandmas buying for the grandkids that they only see twice a year, or we have the Montessori curious moms researching every purchase. This is a specific form of learning through play. And then we have our sub avatar here, which is first time moms drowning in baby product noise. So there's a lot of different angles we can take for these avatars. So of course, for example, for each of these avatars, there can be tens, hundreds of different ad angles that we can actually use. And again, different angle, different hook, and a different ad. So the brand that owns the sub avatar wins the segment with almost no competition. So instead of saying, okay, we're just going to target moms, which everybody's doing, we're basically going to create our own sub-avatar, or choose a sub-avatar that not a lot of our competitors are targeting. So when we go in and take a look at the ad accounts, when we talk with new clients, we're actually seeing, okay, where are the gaps in the competition? Where can we attack where we're pretty much the only ones that are going to be targeting that specific sub-avatar? And then we win that sub-avatar. So with that out of the way, let's move on. There is a common mistake when it comes to creative strategy, and that is that 90% of the market doesn't know that your product exists, and it's getting ignored completely. So you might have heard this before, especially if this is not the first time you're listening to me, because I do talk a lot about the awareness stages. But it's very important when it comes to creative strategy, because it determines how we frame our messaging in our ads. So what we usually see is that the unaware market, or the unaware awareness stage, typically only accounts to 5% of an ad account that we take a look at. And usually it's not by intention, it's more or less just random. Same goes with problem aware, and then solution aware begins to get a little bit more, there is more coverage here. Product aware and most aware, this is typically where most brands focus. So they're just pushing their products to a lot of people and saying, hey, here's our product, here's how great it is, buy it. Whereas a lot of people, they really miss the big gap, which is the unaware and the problem aware market. Again, this doesn't apply to you if you're just starting out. Then of course, product and most aware is the easiest wins. Once you've kind of scaled to, let's just say 80 to 200K a month, anywhere in that realm, then you're going to hit a ceiling at some point, and that is where you want to unlock the unaware and the problem aware awareness stages. So we don't actually look at the design when we audit a new ad account. So we look at two gaps, the awareness stage gaps and the avatar gaps. So which awareness stages are completely ignored? Where in the funnel is the audience untouched? And this is both relevant for, let's say we're auditing your ad account. We will take a look at your ad account and say, okay, which awareness stages are you ignoring, just as we talked about up here. But we're also going to take a look at your competitors and say, okay, which awareness stage in general is untouched? If your biggest competitor is only targeting the most aware, well, we're going to make sure that you win the unaware market, because they're only targeting the people that are looking to buy right now. Whereas we're going in and say, hey, we're going to own the unaware market with the biggest pool of people, and we're going to convert those people, because the competitors are not doing that. It might also be that your competitors are owning the unaware market, whereas they're not really focusing that much of the product aware or most aware. So what we can do is say, hey, they're educating the people, they're warming up the market, which is going to go in and basically convert the people that they have educated for us and warmed up. And we're just going to go in with our product that is better than theirs, with an offer and a pricing that is better than theirs. And then we're just going to convert the people that they're not converting, because they're only focusing on the unaware. So that's how we look at it. The same goes for the avatar gaps. So which avatars within your market or their market, if it's the competitors, are they not attempting to reach? So which kind of sub-segments are wide open, which we talked about earlier within the moms category. We're going to look at which gaps are in here. Where can we actually win, or where can we be the only one competing? So we're actually just creating our own market. That's the second gap that we look at before even looking at your creatives, because that is, if we have the most, if you're targeting the most competitive awareness stage with the most competitive avatar, well, the bigger player is going to win pretty much every time, because they can outspend you. They can create more creatives because they have a bigger team. They might have creative strategists on the team, so they make even better creatives as well. So basically, we don't want to compete with them. Sometimes we want to make sure we find our own market, or where we have the best advantage. That's where we want to target. There's also a myth that volume beats everything, and to be honest, I'm not very keen on this. So in my opinion, you don't need 100 new ads per month. What you need is actually a higher hit rate. So if we take a look at the volume approach here, if we make 100 ads but we only have a 5% hit rate, well, each month we're going to have 5 winners, which means we have a lot of noise and we have a lot of wasted time spent created the creatives. So what we want to do instead is say, hey, we're going to take the high intent approach. So instead, we're only going to create 30 ads, and then because we have done so much more research and we're more certain on each creative, we're going to have a 50% hit rate. So we are creating less creatives, so less volume overall, with more intent, which gives us more winners. So now we have 15 winners compared to 5. And we've done a third of the work, creative work at least. Of course, we've just done that much more research, but it also means that we are creating ads that are winning at a higher scale, which is good. So more ads doesn't fix a bad strategy, it just spreads it thinner. Now, as I mentioned before, different awareness stages needs different creative types. So once the persona, angle, and offer are right, the creative type follows. So cold audiences, they don't convert from offer ads. They need education, as mentioned before, and mid-funnel buyers, they need comparison. Bottom funnel buyers, they want urgency and value. So it's going to be the same product, same brand, completely different conversations at each stage. So let's just take a look. So this is the regular funnel that you're probably used to seeing at this point. We have our top funnel, which is going to be cold traffic targeting the unaware market. So these are the people that don't know they have a problem yet. At this stage, we'll probably use VSL videos, so long form video sales letters. We are going to build belief from zero and basically inject or create a desire in our audience. Then we have native ads, looks like content, reads like content, sells like content. So again, nothing polished, no designs, something that looks like a regular post from the audience that we're targeting. Then we have info carousels, so swipeable education. Slide 1 is kind of the hook. The last slide is a soft pitch. So this could be an example that we made for our own brand here. And then of course there are multiple creatives in the carousel here, but this is going to be the first slide. Now, what we're doing here in the top funnel is we're going to educate people. We're going to reveal the problem. We're not going to act as if they already know they have a problem. We're going to introduce a problem that they might not even know that they had before seeing that. So we are creating demand for our product and basically creating the problem for our audience. Then we have the mid funnel. So these are people that are now aware that they have a problem, but they're not solved yet. So these are people that are solution aware. They're now comparing options. So what is going to be the best product for them? So here we want to differentiate, we want to prove our mechanism and frame the comparison so that we win and keep educating them. So it can be listicles, so 5 things to look for in X category. Basically want this to frame your product as the answer. Advertorial, so this is going to be an editorial style page. Authority voice pre-sells the offer. Can also be a product breakdown, so shows kind of the pieces that matter, walks the buyer through the parts of the offer that they're comparing. So there's quite a few different ways you can structure the ads here. Basically, all in all, they're now aware of the problem, so now we have to make sure that they think that we're the best option in the market. Then we have the bottom of our funnel, which is going to be the most aware, and these are the people that are ready to buy now, right now, but they want a reason, or we need to nudge them a bit more. So here we basically just want to trigger the purchase through discounts, urgency, social proof, or bundles. So offer ads is very, very good here. Urgency ads, limited time, can also be last chance, low stock, all of these different things. Those are very important here in the bottom funnel. And then of course also social proof to really highlight that they're making the right decision and that we move the last bit of doubt here. So there is a lot of different ad formats that we can use in our funnel that speaks to each individual part of the customer journey. So this is very, very important. If we go further on, one thing is the awareness stage, but we also want to make sure that we match our market sophistication, which is basically the other layer. We want to match the depth of how saturated our angle or market is. So here are the 5 sophistication levels that we work with, and as you can see, the longer time the longer time a market has been around and the more ads that people have seen for this specific market or industry, the more the sophistication level and skepticism rises. So in the birth of any market, we can make pretty much any claim. Doesn't really matter. And then over time, we have to make a bigger claim than our competitors. And then when a lot of people are making big claims, well, now the skepticism is higher because the market has seen it a bunch of times. So we want to introduce a mechanism that offers a logical reason that our claim is achievable. And it basically increases up until the point where skepticism is at the max. They no longer believe in any mechanism. And this is where we have to basically create new advanced strategies to win over the competition. So this could, for example, be in some supplement industries where the big brands, they have doctors that are employed by the companies because so many people are skeptic that they now need someone who is very, very experienced and credible in the industry to tell them that this is the best product. That's kind of an advanced strategy that no one else will be easily able to replicate because, okay, well, then they have to go out and hire a real doctor, which is, of course, expensive, and you have to be at a certain size. So this is very important, and it actually comes before creating the creatives, because we want to make sure that the messaging that we have in our ads match the market sophistication level. So if we do get this wrong, then it doesn't really matter how good the format or the angle or the avatar is, because a new category wins with a very simple benefit claim, whereas a saturated category needs mechanism proof or identity to break through. I have made a different video covering the market sophistication level, so you can go and check that out if you're more interested in a more detailed walkthrough of how the sophistication levels work. But it's just important that we keep this in mind, and it's also one of the backbones of our creative strategy. And it's something that a lot of people, they kind of miss. They just think that their product is good enough and they'll just push it out and people will begin to buy. But there's a lot of things that goes into this, and you have to be very aware of what level are your market or your specific industry in. The good thing is, if you are in a very competitive market, you can also find a sub-avatar where the sophistication level is lower. So again, the sub-avatar and the avatar that we're targeting is so important, because it not only determines our messaging, but it also determines how easy it is for us to win. So if we're in a market that is at a skeptical or a kind of a sophistication level of 5, it's a very good idea for us to see if you can find a sub-avatar or a different market where we can sell the same product that is at a level 2 or 3 maybe. It's very hard these days to find a level 1 market. It doesn't happen very often because a lot of things have been tested and tried, especially now with AI. It's becoming easier and easier to create stores. So that is just my 2 cents on this saturated or the market sophistication level. Now, this is pretty much, as I've mentioned a lot of times in this video, the one principle that I'd stake my entire reputation on is research is what makes your concept right. The first step is always going to be research. We're going to be looking at first-party data, customer reviews, ad comments, competitor research, awareness stage gaps, the sophistication level, and much, much more. That is going to be the first step and also the most important step. The second step is going to be creating the right concept, and we do that based on the right research. Once we have the right concept, we then make an angle that lands correctly. Once we have the right angle, we are then going to see our conversion coming through, because the angle is what makes sure that our ad is going to convert. So all of this sums up our creative strategy in simple terms. So if we just take a look at kind of the full picture here, because even as mentioned before, a perfect creative can't really carry a broken business. So if your offer is weak, no ad will kind of save it. If your retention is broken, every customer you acquire is leaking out the back. So we want to fix everything. Creative strategy is one piece of the puzzle. The first layer is, of course, our creative. We also have our offer. So how are we presenting our product? What are we giving people outside of just the product? How are we utilizing our retention? So we're making sure that once we buy a new customer, we make sure they come back multiple times through email and SMS marketing or a subscription add-on to our product. And then we have our funnel. So everything between the first click to their last purchase, that's what we see as the funnel. So we want to make sure everything in here is up to date and as good as it can be before we can actually go out and win over the competition. And the result is that the brands scaling the fastest don't have the best looking ads. They have the clearest thinking behind their ads. Again, the best intent around the ads that they're making. The personas are sharp, the angles are very specific, the offers are aligned, and they've done the real research. That is the lever that you're going to be pulling on. So if you want us to audit your current creative through this lens, we'll map your awareness stages, we'll see which avatars you're targeting and where the gaps are in the market, and we'll tell you exactly where you're missing out and where we'll come in and help you scale to 500 and even to €1 million a month in revenue. So if that sounds interesting for you, book a call below this video and we'll make sure to show you exactly where the gaps are, both for your ad account, but also on your or in your market and industry as a whole.